Hello everyone, this is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and welcome to another Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. With me today is Linda Vickery McLaughlin, also known as Mrs. McLaughlin to many Burlingame High students and parents. Linda is a 70-year resident of Burlingame and taught at Burlingame High School for 27 years, retiring in the year 2014. Linda McLaughlin. Linda, thanks for joining us today. Linda, the sun is shining. It's warm outside. We've got a little pollen in the air, so my voice might be a little scratchy, etc., but we're going to have a little fun today. How you doing?
Yes, we are. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Doing
Mark?
Great, Linda.
Good.
Really happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here, too.
So, Linda, before we get going, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay, here are the facts. I was born in Mills Hospital, San Mateo, California, July 12, 1949, to Bob and Elsie Vickery. I'm a fourth-generation Californian. I grew up on Ralston Avenue in Burlingame. I attended St. Paul's Nursery School, Pershing School, McKinley School, Crystal Springs School for Girls, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then Burlingame High School, fall 1964 to spring 1967. After graduating, I attended UC Berkeley for 2 years, fall 67 to spring 69. Then married Tom McLaughlin in summer of 1969, just short of my 20th birthday. We had 3 children, TJ, Tara, and Aaron. I returned to school in 1981 and earned my MS in Business, Human Relations and Organizational Behavior, don't you know, from USF. I then went on to earn my teaching credential from College of Notre Dame in 1987 and returned to the College of Notre Dame to earn my master, my MA in English. Thought that was better than organizational behavior.
I think it's a darn good idea.
I did too.
That you were going to teach English, yeah.
And journalism, which I knew nothing about but quickly learned. Glenn Morgan was my mentor, and I retired in 2014.
You mentioned that you went to Berkeley.
Yes.
I'm a little jealous because by the time I was in 3rd grade, my parents knew that I was not be going to Cal or Stanford, okay? So I'm a little jealous of that. You left, when did you leave Cal? Your sophomore year?
After my sophomore year, I had my reg packet in my hand, and I decided to get married. I was really put off by what was going on at Cal during those years. 1968 was a pivotal time in our history, certainly in my little life.
Yeah, well, we might get back to that again in a moment. What was it like being a high school student in the late 60s?
Exciting.
Why?
It was a time when traditions were challenged by the teenagers. We became the spokespeople, not the old folks. There were the dress code. When I started at Burlingame High School, I had to wear a skirt or a dress and a sweater. We were not allowed to wear pants. Oh, and the girdle to hold the stockings up. We had to have stockings. Very uncomfortable. And one day in my senior year, hallelujah, we got to wear pants. And that was, I'll never forget standing on El Camino getting ready to cross the street to walk to Burlingame High School with pants on.
Yeah, that was the beginning of a trend, I guess.
Absolute trend. That, and also that was also the beginning of the miniskirt preceded the pants era. But when I'd leave home, I rolled up my skirts so they were shorter. Then the bell bottoms came in, and boys, instead of wearing khakis and button-down shirts, were wearing T-shirts and leather coats with fringe. And
that must have been a real surprise to the administration, right?
Oh, it was. Well, let me tell you a little story about, because the hair changed also in one year.
Oh, yeah.
My future husband, Tom McLaughlin, came to school with long hair. It was about the length of the Beatles' hair, but nobody had long hair. So Vic Mangini said, if you want to walk the stage, young man, you will cut your hair. Well, he was furious. So he shaved his head. That was his answer.
So he went all the way the other way. That's amazing.
He
That's
did.
Great.
And let's see, I think.
So, Linda, while you were at Burlingame, did you participate in any activities, sports or drama, the school paper, anything like that?
No, I really didn't. My grandmother was the dean of girls, and I wanted to stay out of the limelight because I was already in the limelight, having that connection.
So your
with
grandmother
her.
was dean of girls while Vic Mangini was
Yeah.
the dean of men.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, so
Yeah,
I had a little in there.
Yeah, I had Jerry Mangini on a few weeks back on a podcast talking about Vic. So,
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful family.
While you were at Burlingame, do you remember any notable student? In fact, all the students are notable as well as the teachers, but some went on to do extraordinary things.
You
do you remember
know,
anything like that?
There are so many notable students. The only one that everybody probably knows is Diane Agron.
Oh, yeah.
Who became a cheerleader on Glee, the show Glee. And, of course, she didn't remember me from Adam. I was her senior English teacher,
Right.
and that was fine because
Right.
I saw her one time at Glenn Morgan's class. And, of course, Adam Klein, who won the $1 million on Survivor.
Yes. Yeah, that was just a few years back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But over the years, there have been notable students.
Yeah.
The Burlingame, I think, has more notable students than probably any other public school in this area. Just go look on the wall at Burlingame High School in the alumni room to see them all.
Yeah.
And, I have students that have written books that have gone on to become teachers. Ryan Ofield is a teacher at Mercy and is now going on to earn his MA. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, he had great things to say about you, too, by the way.
Well, that's very nice. But it's difficult to name. There's been so many years.
Linda, I know we're going back. That's okay.
Yeah,
all right?
and remember, I'm 72
I'm
years
not going
old
to
now.
jar your memory here. So I'll tell you this, though. I am going to try something with this. So what fond memories do you have of Burlingame Avenue in the 60s?
Oh, my gosh.
What storefronts do you remember?
The storefronts. Hal's.
Up by Safeway.
Yes. It was on Howard, and I don't know what you call the kind of vehicle that it was in, but they had the chairs and that was my favorite place. I would go to Hal's with a girlfriend, and we would sit there and ogle the boys and gossip and eat French fries.
Yeah, they were famous.
Coca-Cola.
They had great French fries, great burgers there.
Yes.
French fries, a big bag.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Fox Theater,
Yep.
50 cents to get. I'd walk from my house to
Yep.
Fox Theater, very elaborate red-themed theater that's now the Fox Mall.
Yep.
Walmer's Music Store, and
Yes.
apparently in Walmer's, it was a former movie theater as well.
I didn't know that, but I know that when you went to Walmer's, you could go in there and put on the headphones and put on a 45 and listen to the song if you wanted to before you bought it.
I
Remember
bought
that?
hundreds
I bet.
of 45s, hundreds. And I'd go home and I would dance, and I wore a hole in my carpet. I brought my makeup from Plagman's drugstore, my candy from Miller's drugstore, and then shoes at Smith and Heller
Yep. Yep.
on the avenue. And I think they had, what's it called? An x-ray. They would x-ray feet.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
at one point, and then before they knew that was a dangerous thing to do.
So do you remember the store that was next to Smith and Heller? It was a men's clothing store.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And Tom Simpson.
I think you
is
probably
a
went to
dear
high
friend
school
of
with him.
mine.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
Tom Simpson and his wife
Yeah.
are just, and I had, I think, 2 of their children in my class.
Really?
Wonderful. Just
Yeah.
a wonderful Burlingame family.
So Linda, Burlingame had an open campus, meaning that you could leave the campus and walk over to Burlingame Avenue for lunch, or et cetera. Did you have a favorite spot for lunch?
Nelson's.
Nelson's.
Nelson's, because they had the best lemon meringue pies. And then also Toll's. Toll's is a very special
Yeah.
place for me. I used to go there with my grandmother and my friends, and it had a soda fountain, and I had tuna sandwich and orange freeze. I can taste that combination right now.
Yeah.
let's see.
I was crushed when they tore the fountain out and did the remodel. They had such a great thing going for themselves,
and ladies were wonderful, and they put in the seafood.
Yes, they did fine. They kept the same kind of decor and everything.
Yes.
But then the next group came along and just it's done and over with. So, so Linda, there was about 8 or 9 years after you left BHS and went to Cal, then left Cal and raised a family. What else happened during those years? Did you work at all?
When I left Cal and married, I have to say that after being in such a stimulating environment as Cal was, intellectually stimulating, I was a little bored at home, and I got caught up in the feminist movement.
Okay.
Reading books, not from personal, just reading the books. And I decided that I could be my own person and still be a mother and a wife. And so I and a friend opened a clothing store on the corner of Chapin and Primrose called The Black Sheep.
Chapin and Primrose.
And I didn't look up the address.
That's
sorry.
okay. Right down the street from Molly Stone's.
Right down the street from Molly Stone's.
To give a little plug. Okay.
Great neighborhood. And but we had a falling out. My partner and I. She bought me out. I was hoping to buy her out, but it didn't work out that way. And then I returned to school. CSM, got a job as a receptionist in the writing center, and at that time my marriage fell apart. Divorced in 1983. And I knew I had to have a career to support myself and my children, although Tom was great. I mean, there wasn't a problem with him being a great father. But I still knew I needed to support myself. So I enrolled in a USF satellite program held in San Mateo, and that's where I earned my bachelor's business. And went to a job fair, and they laughed at me because I didn't have any experience. So I decided to become a teacher because I loved teenagers. I loved reading, loved talking about reading. And the entire educational community, I felt comfortable in that community. And because of my grandmother was a very important role model in my life. And I think she's probably the main reason that I turned to teaching from business.
So those were your inspirations?
Those were my inspirations,
to teach,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So while you were at Burlingame and you were teaching, how would you define a good day at school? What's a good day?
A good day is taking attendance. I often forgot to take attendance because, I wanted to get right in before I lost them. So the unknown of each day was exciting to me. I never knew what it would be. So a good day was one in which I saw interest on the kids' faces, if they laughed, if no one had to be sent out, if I didn't have to take their phones, because at the end of my teaching career, the cell phones came in.
Oh, yeah, didn't they, though? Yeah.
Yes.
Same as the workplace.
Oh, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Did you have any traditions or superstitions for the first day of school?
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I didn't. I tend to be superstitious. When I went to my grandson's basketball games, I made sure I wore the same clothes that I wore when he won.
That's good. Yeah,
but
that's right.
As far as teaching, I was just as excited and nervous as the kids.
Yeah. How did you show your school spirit?
I advised many clubs at lunchtime. I always wore red on Friday.
Great.
I was the advisor to the BSU, which is the Black Student Union. Here's this white, blue-eyed blonde, but there were no black teachers in the school at the time. And Randy Williams, the campus aide, helped me. And everybody loved Randy.
Yeah.
And he made a tremendous
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that
contribution.
Burlingame High had a black student union. I thought it only came along in the college years.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
it's pretty
it
progressive.
started in 1970,
That's
actually.
pretty progressive. That's great.
Yeah.
So how did you keep things fresh as a teacher?
Well,
You're glad I asked that question.
Well, oh wait, that's the bad day. Let's see. To keep things fresh, I challenge the students with the idea of keeping an open mind about life and things and issues and people and causes by telling them that I believed in shape-shifting. So I became known as the nutty teacher that believed in shape-shifting. I believe that there are certain people who, Native Americans especially, who are able to realign their molecules and become something else, an eagle, a bear. And I presented the idea tongue-in-cheek because I wanted to shake them up. So to keep things fresh, I often told them stories or kept things in their time, in their interests. Films, I showed a lot of films. Cool Hand Luke with existentialism, because Cool Hand Luke is so, he doesn't know what he is in life, what he's meant to do, and he's just he doesn't fit in with the rest of the people. And so we'd have grand conversations about the themes of the different films. The Graduate, that was another example of an existentialist, Ben, who again did not know what he wanted out of life, and he thought, well, having sex with this older woman, that was pretty exciting until it wasn't.
Right.
And then he was back with himself. Yeah. So again, these were kids that were going on to college in life, and so we talked about what mattered to them, and that's some of the ways that I tried to keep things fresh and interesting for them, and changing I didn't just lecture. I think that's probably the worst kind of teaching there is.
You made each day kind of exciting.
I tried because I wanted to be exciting. Yeah. And they always had interesting ideas.
Yeah.
Whether I agreed with them or not, it didn't matter.
Did you teach freshmen English all the way through seniors, or did you just do juniors?
I taught freshmen for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then, having earned my master's in English, I thought, I don't want to teach freshmen anymore, even though I love the books.
Game, right.
So I started teaching. I taught one class of junior AP, the rhetorical class, composition, and I can't remember the other part of it. But anyway, and then seniors. I loved seniors. And then the school newspaper. I taught 5 classes. We all full-time teachers did.
Yeah.
So the 3 classes of college prep seniors, I loved them.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
I can tell. I can feel it. I know. Well,
good.
You taught 2 of my kids, so I get
yes,
that. And,
Cam and Garrett.
So
I was so lucky.
So what accomplishments make you feel great? Fill you up with pride.
The school newspaper.
The newspaper.
Every time that paper came, each edition.
The Burlingame Bee.
The Burlingame Bee. Now, here's an embarrassing moment. There was a substitute, an older gentleman, and I guess he was a journalist or an editor or something, but he would send the paper to me, give it back to me with red marks all over the paper, and he was right to do so. I was lucky.
It just made you better. I
was lucky that he did that, because then I realized, oh my goodness. And then one horrifying incident. This is when I really learned what it meant to be a journalist, because I knew nothing. I didn't even read newspapers.
Right.
I just took the job because that was the way to keep my job.
Yeah.
And so this student had written in one of the first newspapers I ever put out an editorial about AIDS. And he said that anybody who has AIDS should be shot.
Boy, jeez.
And I didn't agree with him in any shape, way or form, but I thought, well, he has the right to his opinion.
Yeah.
Well, Carol Costa, history teacher, came in with a young man, and they couldn't have been kinder or more gentle with me. They sat down with me, and he told me that his father was dying of AIDS.
Oh, boy.
And that's exactly, it was a tough moment. One in which I realized there's got to be a way of writing an opinion that doesn't deal with killing people. So that I then abruptly took a class in journalism at Stanford on the summer campus.
Did you take any flack from the administration for allowing that?
I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't take any flack. And it could very well be because the student's father was somebody in the community. So it could have been the reason.
Yeah, boy, that must have been, well, that was a learning.
Oh, it was a shocker.
Learning lesson
for you. It was a shocker. Yeah. And I was embarrassed. I felt shame. But I also knew I was a novice. And, this is my time to learn and to never, ever let that happen again. Yeah. So, and thank goodness this young man couldn't have been nicer. Yeah. And realize that this is just this one person's opinion and it's skewed.
Yeah. So you mentioned cell phones a moment ago with the kids bringing the cell phones. Did technology make teaching simpler or harder?
Much easier.
Yeah.
Oh, because we used to have to do the mimeographs where we had to, we didn't have printers in those days. And to mimeograph, of course, I love the smell of the mimeograph ink.
It's funny. So did I.
Yeah, I think most people did. Yeah. But they fade and they're awful and they're messy. And so having copiers and then instead of having to show films, instead of having to use the old film that had to be threaded through the machine, just to be able to click on a laptop and there it is up on the screen. You have whatever you want.
Yeah.
Even little clips of a minute long.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Wonderful. And then as far as the school newspaper, we used to have to take pieces of tape for the columns. It wasn't like, we
you had to hold them in place?
To show what the column lines between the different columns. Mm-hmm. And, fortunately, we only did that, I think, 2 years. And then the software came out and the computers came out, the Apple computers. And so then things became so much easier.
How many years were you involved with the newspaper?
26 years.
Oh, my gosh.
And I loved it.
Almost your whole career.
Oh, yeah. Many, many, many late nights. But shout out to Glenn Morgan because I know he was there with my journalism students because they were held in the same classroom. He was often there, Glenn Morgan, late. Yeah. And so I would leave. And I just can't thank him enough for him staying. And the kids all loved him. And then I started, especially after when he retired, I was there night after night. Yeah. So, we couldn't take it home. Now the kids can actually put the software on their own computer and work at home.
Yeah. How often did the paper come out?
Once a month.
Yeah.
Once a month.
And did you have a certain deadline on that once a month? Was it the 30th or sometimes did it go into the 1st?
No, it sometimes was the 25th.
Yeah.
It just depended on the semester.
Pretty much figure every 4 weeks or so.
Right. There was a newspaper. Yeah.
So what are the best and worst things about being a teacher?
Oh, the worst is the heartbreak when a student fails and you do everything you can to help them and you talk to the parent and you just have to accept that that's going to happen. That maybe they don't graduate from high school, but they can have success later on. Mm-hmm. But that's and the entitled parents. Fortunately, I had very few entitled parents, but the entitled parents really made it hard. I know that I had a student in my senior class, I'll never forget him, I won't mention names, but he sat in the very back of the classroom and talked incessantly. And I got mad at him finally and changed his seat. And he said, "I'm going to tell my father on you." And I laughed because this father worked in education.
Oh, boy.
And it was in charge of discipline. Mm-hmm. I said, "Okay, you tell your father." Darned if that father didn't call me up and read me the riot. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That was a real low for me. And the good superseded the bad.
Of course.
It superseded. Mm-hmm. The kids, again, just the whole teaching community and that we're all in here for the same reason, to better ourselves intellectually, physically, socially. And that's why the pandemic shutting the schools down was a terrible time for the kids. It was.
So glad they're back in school.
I am too.
I think the masks have come off now as well.
That's what I understand.
Yeah, that's great. So if you were going to talk with a young and upcoming teacher, what sort of teaching wisdom would you pass on to he or she?
Well, listen more than speak. See the humor in everything. Because you're going to have tough times, such as Huck Finn, when you've got the N-word all the way through it. What do? That's a really tough one. Stay curious about whatever it is you're teaching, because I know some teachers in the past, they use the same lesson plan year after year, and that's the beauty of English. We can change it month to month and try new things. And so be curious and be open-minded, because when one isn't open-minded, you get stuck. And you stop relating to the students, you suffer depression in yourself, and just take advantage of opportunity.
Yeah.
That, I think, is one of the things that when Mr. Umpleby asked me to do my student teaching at Burlingame High School, and I said, "What? I can't teach here. I went to school here." And I was so nervous.
It's one of those so unique things to be able to come back and teach at the school that you graduated from. It's amazing.
I was blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still pretty connected, so I'm going to give you an opportunity here to give a pitch for something that's I know is very important to you. It's the 100-year anniversary celebration of Burlingame High. I think it's going to be, next year? October
13th and 14th, 2023.
2023. So why don't you go ahead and make a pitch of the challenges, if you need volunteers, donations, sponsors?
We need volunteers. There are 12 of us that meet every month. We need 150 of us. And it's fun. It's an opportunity
Do you need
to
sponsors,
reconnect, and
donations?
we need donations. It's going to cost. We're talking about having it in like a dance, just so like a reunion, a typical reunion party at one of the hotels over on the Strip. But we're also hoping, and I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, that we can close down part of Lorton Avenue after the football game on Friday night, so that we can, eat and
that'd be wonderful,
and have, again, reconnect on the street.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forgot to mention the rec dances.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, I have to mention the rec dances were amazing. We had live music, and I would tell my students all the time, you missed out with these DJs.
Those were Friday nights, right?
Friday
the live
nights,
bands.
and we'd walk over from, I mean, that was a small town. That was Burlingame.
Yeah.
You'd go to the football game, you'd walk through Washington Park, and you'd go to the rec dance. And, it was just a blast. But that's the kind of thing, and all the memories that people have of Burlingame Avenue, that now it's changed. It's become this posh kind of up-and-coming city that is wonderful. I just am so grateful to still live here. I love Burlingame. Yeah. But this reunion, this 100-year reunion, again, gives you a chance to reconnect.
Doesn't it, though? I think it'll be wonderful.
That we've been talking about today.
Yeah, I think it'll be wonderful. And even though I didn't go to Burlingame, my brother did, my children did, Kathy and I will be there to support it.
Thank goodness.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
I wouldn't
much.
miss it. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Well, you are, Mr. Burlingame.
Okay, enough of that. So 20 years ago, when we were opening up Molly Stone's in 1999, or I guess maybe 22 years ago, I did a little promotional thing. I hung a picture at the front entrance. It was a picture that was long-standing at the Bit of England, and it had five Burlingame High School seniors dressed up as female cheerleaders.
In 1967.
Correct. And I thought, boy, I'm going to get some mileage out of this. I put a little tag up there saying, if you can tell me who the five guys are, I'll give you a Molly gift card for $100. And I thought I would get great mileage. I think 48 hours later, you walked in the store and said, Mark, it's, do you remember the guys?
It's Andy Zurich, Greg Gartner, Hugh Allen, Fred Lurman, and Duffy Ofield.
The late, great Duffy.
The late, great Duffy Ofield.
Yeah, I miss him so dearly. So,
oh, yes. What a loss.
I'm going to end with this. This is a question I've been just starting to ask people. I stole it from my favorite interviewer. If there is a heaven and God met you at the pearly gates, what would you want him to say to you?
You did good. And I'd say, no, God, I did well with your help.
That's great, Linda. Linda Vickery McLaughlin, thank you so much for being part of this podcast.
Thank you for asking me. I'm humbled.
I'd like to thank Linda Vickery McLaughlin for being our guest today on Burlingame. It's a small town video podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. If you would like to participate in the 100-year Burlingame High School celebration, contact burlingamealumni.com, Rusty Knutson, President. Thanks to my videographer, the great Ray Tyler, Kathy and Shelby for editing and producing, and our musical director, Bray. You can hear more of Bray at bray.com. And finally, special thanks to the Burlingame Library for allowing me to use Conference Room A as my adopted recording studio. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this video podcast, and no part of this program can be copied or rebroadcast without permission. So until next time, everybody, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.